All right, so you guys want to introduce yourselves? Tell all of chat who you are, what you do, what you've been working on. I will move this out of the way. There
Alex, go first.
You want me to go first? No. Hey, age before beauty. You rock and roll it.
I was going to say beauty before age, but I'll take it. My name is Joel Bylos. I'm the creative director on Dune Awakening, and that's what we've been working very hard on here for the last 5 or so years. And I'm joined by my friend.
My colleague. Hi, my name is Alexander. Alex, it's easier. I work with Joel for the better part of 16 years of my so far life. It's been fun. It's been hard. I love you, friend. It's looking good. Yeah, let's see how we do. What do I do actually at this company? I'm a designer. I'm the combat lead for Dune Awakening.
Heck yeah! So you're the combat lead that actually works in this. So actually, Chet had a whole bunch of different questions about combat for this, specifically around PvP, because there's a lot of people that are like, "Oh man, I don't want a PvP. I'm going to be forced into it." I try to explain to them that the worlds are pretty expansive, but can you go into what is it like being a solo player? What is it like being a player who is averse to PvP in this? How does it feel doing this, like being that person in this type of a world?
Joel, I feel that's a director level question, bro. Like I
Okay.
could answer it, but I think it's not my place.
Could be.
Oh, you can answer it, but it's fine. We've had our fun discussions about this. So when you start out in the game, you start out in a place called Hager Basin. Hager Basin is what I would describe as a 90% PvP free experience. There are certain shipwrecks in the area. They're like areas that are, I don't know what I want to say, like a couple of 100 meters wide, where there's free PvP in there. But as a solo player, you can PvE your way through Hager Basin all the way to the end. And that's like on our estimates, on the way that we're seeing people play in the beta, on our data that's coming out of there, that's like 70 to 90 hours of game time just there. So if you enjoy PvE, there's dungeons, there's things to do. You don't have to be going into the PvP areas. The resources that drop in the shipwrecks, the PvP parts in Hager Basin, you can actually get those resources from other locations, including buying them from vendors, but also exploring other types of shipwrecks that fall out of the sky as random events. So I think there's it's like, as an experience, I think it starts off. One of the things I like to say about the combat in this game is that it's 1/5 of the experience. Right, we have a lot of features. It's not a. Sometimes I see comments that kind of make my eyes explode, my brain explode a bit when people talk about like comparing us to Destiny or they're comparing us to Elden Ring, and it just kind of hurts my soul because we're not trying to be a combat focused action game. We're trying to be a broad survival game with building and vehicles and crafting and so combat's a part of the experience. As a player, it's kind of if you follow the sort of tutorial in the game and work through it, you build yourself up, you get better gear as you get to better tiers of materials, as you do in other crafting games. Build yourself through those tiers, keep equipping yourself. More and more options come online as you progress through tiers. So obviously you start off with a scrap metal knife and you get a mauler pistol. And as you upgrade, you start getting access to assault rifles, you start getting access to shields, which change the combat paradigm dramatically. You get access to Holtzman tech, where you can float using suspensor belts, and then suddenly the paradigm shifts again because now you're, doing death from above, floating above enemy camps, shooting down at them. And then, so the game has this really good progression, I think, for a solo or PvE only player, all the way through. But then the end game, there's sort of this section called the Deep Desert, and the Deep Desert is this. I mean, we talked about it last time, I think, Thor. But the Deep Desert has a little strip of PvE at the bottom, and then it's a PvP experience north of that, where we expect large-scale combat between guilds and groups to be fighting it out there as a part of the political landscape of Dune.
Yeah, so
that's kind of the overview.
One of the things you brought up is random events of things falling from the sky. Since it's a PvE-only zone, what is really stopping me from just running around and looting every single one of these? Is there anything that is dangerous with this? Is it just like free loot? Like, can you explain this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the one thing that the one big feature that I think sort of lies at the heart of Dune is the sandworms. So if a shipwreck falls from the sky and crashes onto the open sand, it immediately becomes a race against time, because the sandworms will come to that vibration caused by a ship crashing from the sky. And this is kind of what we call a peak moment in the game. Players are they're kind of betting on how quickly they can get in and out with the loot. So you have a certain amount of time to get there, to cut array off the hatches on these fallen spaceships, take the stuff that's in there, and then get out before the sandworm gets you. And I see a lot of people take that gamble and fail in the beta. It happens a lot. So yeah, that's kind of like, we have these big threats in the world, like the sandworms are one of them, and we're always just from a design perspective, we're always thinking about like, well, the sandworm never gets less dangerous. And if the sandworm eats you, it's the only way that you lose everything you have in the game. It eats all your gear and everything you have in your backpack. And so we're always, as designers, kind of being a little, fun with it and always putting things out on that open sand that you're going to want.
I think that's the biggest thing with that is the sense of tension of going out and being like, I actually have to pay attention to this. I'm not just going to have to respawn. Like, I'll lose everything if the worm gets me. And that's one of those things that's really interesting to me is not only does it take items out of the economy of the game, right? But it also makes it so that there's always a, do I really want to do this? And that's something that is, I think, sorely lacking from a lot of games, especially from MMOs, right? When you have so many players online, it's that kind of a thing. That's another thing, too. Let's talk about, like, item economy. What's stopping me from having, like, a big guild with all the best items, like, and then we're just done? Is there any reason to keep playing at that point when you have all the coolest stuff? Does it stick around? How does this work?
Yeah, so the way we've designed the game is to have this, like, steep desert, right? And the deep desert is, the PvP area where you like our we're not that punishing on, like, drops. When you get killed in PvP, you drop a percentage of resources. You drop the most important resource, spice. You drop 100% of that. You drop 100% of your Solaris, which is the in-game currency. But you don't lose your gear, but you take durability damage every time. So the deep desert cycles between a map that we sort of handcraft these maps. So there's a new map every week.
How many of those are there? Are they random in any way, that map?
Yeah, it changes every week, and basically we hand make them, so they're always different. So at least at launch we're going to have, like, a certain number of these maps, and there shouldn't be a repeat. And then when we reach the first big update, we'll release a new set of these maps, and there shouldn't be a repeat. So hopefully we'll get a big backlog of these maps. So at the point if we ever start to recycle them, people won't actually, hopefully they won't have everything tracked to it. It's the internet, people will probably, but
I think that was the thing that I was worried about was, like, the map would be, like, randomly generated and we'd be like, wow, this map is weird this week, or something like that. But if you guys are hand building all of those and you just have, like, a huge backlog of them, that's freaking rad, actually. Like, I'm super
that's the plan. It doesn't take us long to make them. Because it's like we have this kind of cool tech where we can drag what we call the islands around, and the sea of sand between the islands gets generated. But the placement of the islands and the placement of the resources and the, whether there's an ecology lab appearing here or whether there's a shipwreck appearing here, all of these things are handled by our world team, and they just sort of do this. So making these maps with the different placements, and then those different eco labs, like, they might not show up. So let's say we have 12 maps, so 3 months worth of maps. And then there might be an eco lab that shows up once or twice in that 12 weeks, which means that, like, for that week, the loot that drops in that particular lab is what people are fighting over, right? And guilds will try to control the space, we would imagine, we hope. We can't, I can't guarantee all of this is going to happen. We've seen stuff in the beta that makes us positive to it. We've also seen people, giving us more negative feedback, which allows us to expand and change things, right? So there's but the idea, is that, like, as you said, you have a big guild, you want to sort of own everything. You will need to be in that space for a while. You will need to control it, and you will need to compete with other people who also want that stuff.
That's awesome. What's like the expected level of gear and progression that I need to have in order to enter the deep desert? What is it balanced around in terms of, like, the dangers of PvE in that zone?
Yeah, man. So I forget the hour mark, but honestly, I would say not casual is a bad word, but a person that doesn't have loads of time to play, 70 hours before they get enough and progress enough to where they can go in and have the equipment they need from the Haga Basin, which is the stepping stone to the deep desert. Includes a thopter, backup gear, whatever else you need. Once you get to the deep desert, there's I think you guys have talked about this. I don't remember off the top of my head now. There's a section of safe location where you can build your base for that week so that you don't have to handle loading screen death, where you can deploy your resources, you can stack up, you can store, and then you choose your opportunity to go. Whether it's information that you've bought or acquired another way, or just looking to explore, right? So I would say people that have played in the beta could probably get that. Like, I think some people are very, very efficient, right? Others less so. This is some of the challenges that we're also running into. Very efficient people can get there in maybe 15, 20 hour if they're efficient. Others need like 60, 70. Obviously, if you have help, then it's a completely different equation, because I can just give you stuff. You don't have the progression for it, but you can still click people. and you can still drive people, and you can be an asset by simply conducting logistics operation, right? Like one of the questions you asked beforehand is, what's stopping me doing everything? Space, time, opportunity cost. Right, it's just you have to choose where you commit, choose what you want. If you want the fancy woo gun from over there, then you don't get the vehicle part from over there, or maybe Jon Snow gets it from over there. Whatever the choice is.
So let's say that I've got a friend who's got all that items, all the stuff, and he boosts me with a bunch of stuff. Will I be at any kind of disadvantage as a result of him just handing me all of the gear? Do I have to go and do anything in the Haga Basin, or can I just leave? Is there a disadvantage to ignoring it?
Would you like to run this one, Joel?
I have an answer, but I mean, you also probably have a good answer to this. My thought, I think the core thing they'll be missing is the ability progression, right, through the skill system. There are a lot of through the skill trees and the way that you build your character in the game. As you level up, you get skill points, you spend them. You know, it's classic stuff, right? But there's passives in there that you're going to want, especially if you're doing PvP. There are immunity skills in there that you're going to want to, there are techniques there that you're going to want to slot, unless you want every person with a Bene Gesserit skill in the late game to just move you around the map at their will. So you can be helpful. I don't think you'll be top tier competitive if you don't play through some of the progression, right? Of course, you can gain that experience if you're being carried by a strong group and people are helping you out. But I also think skipping the journey is kind of missing half the fun. But you can definitely go there. You can definitely contribute. You won't be top tier if you don't go through the actual progression of the game. There's also a third ability slot that's locked down until you follow a part of the main story of the game. So you do have to fill in and do part of the main story of the game to get access to to your third ability slot to start with, right? And that's a little bit of work. It's not tons. It's not a massive blocker, but it's a bit.
It's a bit.
Like,
sure.
Sorry, one of the things, roughly speaking, because roughly is actually accurate term in this, roughly 33% of your power is on your skill tree, technically your character-based progression. The other 33% we roughly estimate to be on the itemized progression, which you can be given, lost, reacquired, what have you. And the other 33% we roughly try to position into the player's actual skill. Right? You just being able to click people, manage your cooldowns, understand how to build, is a element that we try to account for. So that's where we're roughly aiming. Whether or not we land it, and within the ballpark that we landed of 33% is another question and experience, but that's the objective at least.
Nice. So in terms of progression and things like that, we also have storyline-based progression. How do factions work? Can I join multiple factions? Does this lock me into combat with players of another faction? Can I just, be a Harkonnen and be cool? Or do I have to kill every Atreides? I will anyway, but do I have to, is really the question.
Yeah, so the way we've sort of set up the faction lines right now is we wanted to let people play the game a bit first to get a feel for the game, so you don't have to join a faction. In fact, you can't join a faction right from the beginning. It's not a choice in character creation or anything like that. As you play, you'll meet the factions. In fact, the beginning kind of storylines with the factions, you meet both, and they're both kind of petitioning you to do a little bit for them. And what they want you to do as a player is kind of be an off-the-books operative for a while. So you're kind of off, you can be working for the Atreides or the Harkonnen doing this initial series of faction lines, and it doesn't really matter. Like, people don't really know at the Atreides faction fortress that you're secretly been working for the Harkonnen for a while, vice versa. The plan is to expand on the faction system as we move forward after launch with updates. But right now, as a player, it's okay. The faction system, you can only choose one faction. If you choose a faction and then align your guild with that faction, everybody who's not in that faction in your guild will be booted. That's a really important consequence of your choice. But you can be you can join the Atreides, work your way to the top, and then leave the Atreides before you take the final plunge. You can betray them. They won't take you back, but the Harkonnen will be happy to have you then, right? And then you can work your way up through the Harkonnen.
I'm going to be honest with you. We're a Harkonnen household. All right, if you're not in Harkonnen, that's just how it's going. All right, you get kicked. That's how it goes.
That's how it goes. It
as you can
seems to
see,
be a PvP thing I've seen.
I have my original Baron Harkonnen action figure. Show this up. It's from when I was a kid, dude. I've had this for ages, and he's an inaction figure, so you can see that his head does like that, and his arms kind of move, and that's about it. That's his whole movement range.
Nice.
It's fantastic.
Classic Baron.
It's
he has
absolutely
the pustules and all.
He does. He's disgusting. It's great. Yeah, I am so proud of that. It's a good piece of nerd archaeology, man. All right, let's see.
We only
I really like that
from the
though.
2020 film.
So, as a guild that is joined into a faction, what does that give me? Because the drawback is I have to kick it kicks everybody who's not part of that. Does it give me some kind of an advantage? Do I get new features that are unlocked? What does this do?
Yeah, so guilds can participate in the Landsrad, and the Landsrad is kind of our, let's say, endgame activity driver. The idea of the Landsrad is that it's like each of the major factions will be asking guilds under their purview to help them win votes in the Landsrad. And so, as a Harkonnen aligned faction, you'll be competing with the Atreides to meet a series of goals in this Landsrad. That means convincing all the delegates to give you their votes. And then at the end of the week, which is kind of the period which the Landsrad runs for, you'll be able to then make a choice based on how much your guild contributes to the Landsrad, and if your guild faction wins. So it's both guild and faction here. So let's say Harkonnen have, of the 25 squares of the Landsrad, you guys get 20, so you win for the week. You take the Landsrad. And then your guild was the one who contributed the most to winning those votes, because you can deliver certain amounts of things, you can hold control points to earn points for the Landsrad, you can kill certain amounts of enemies to earn points for the Landsrad. Doing these different activities will then give you a status as a guild. Let's say you're the highest ranked Harkonnen guild, then you have the most voting power that week. And then when the 3 decrees, so we have 3 decrees that will show up randomly every week. We have a randomized list of decrees. Then you can make a choice of decree, and one of those decrees will alter something kind of important in the game, generally server-wide, for your faction. It can also be for the other faction. You can also be messing with them a bit. One of the examples of this is, let's say, the Deep Desert. It's not a full loot PvP game, but you can, for a week, turn it into a full loot PvP area.
Oh, that's rough,
by taking
dude.
that degree. Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because you see the PvE players and the PvP players kind of also butting heads over this because they don't want that decree, right? So it actually encourages participation from both sides of that fence. It is a way of doing player versus player without actually PvEers having to go out and get killed. It means that they can actually contribute to this Landsrad in their own way. It's kind of a way of funneling everybody's activities in the game into this competition, this competitive space. So that's something you get access to as a guild that you can't access as a solo player.
How many political factions are there? Is it just the 2, or are there more?
2, we'll be adding a 3rd post-launch, but I'm not really at liberty to speak about them yet. But their job, I think we talked about it a little bit last time, their job is not to compete directly in the Landsrad, their job is to balance the Landsrad.
To be an upset.
Yes. Their job is to be the Joker in the pack.
That's exciting. I'm really into that. So, with all of this, and we're talking about flux and anything, is there any type of permanence in the world? Is there a place I can store my stuff and not worry about other players destroying it, or the desert consuming it, or anything like this? Because that's always going to be a really big concern, especially in anything that has any PvP focus. People are always worried about losing all their progress and having it all undone.
Yep, 100%. Do you want to take this one, Alex, or should I keep going? You haven't talked
sure.
enough.
So
I want to
hear later. So the Deep Desert is on a weekly cycle. At the end of that cycle, your Deep Desert is wiped, which means that you need to go in, do the activity, and go back out again. If you don't, whatever's left behind is cleaned off. And then we go to, like Joel was saying, another map of the year. There's many varieties of them. This one is different to the next one, is different to the one from the yesteryear, what have you. Once you egress from, is that the right time? I don't remember now. Once you get out of the Deep Desert, you have to go back to your survival map to either store it in your safe base, or you want to put it on the market. What's the keyword? I forget, Joel. What did we name it?
Exchange.
Exchange. That's the one.
Yes. So that's in the kind of like social hub area.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a logistics. So just to sort of very directly answer the first question, Hager Basin South, the first map that you're in, is completely safe place to build bases because it's mostly PvE, right? So anywhere that's a PvE space, in that, if you build a base there, it's not raidable, it's not destroyable. The only thing you have to worry about is sandstorms and taxes, right? So you have to make sure that you have your shields running, which are fueled. So you have to keep fuel in your base to keep your base shields running. If your base shields are running, the sandstorms won't damage your base. The other thing is that once you reach a certain point and you want to start building more advanced structures, you then place out what we call an advanced subfief. Once you claim an advanced subfief, you start having to pay tax to the Emperor to be able to exist on Arrakis. Otherwise, he's going to shut your shields down after a period of time. You can't escape taxes. That's just how it is. But in this case, it makes sense because people who leave the game or stop playing, we need to be able to have their bases decay. But we also want to give them that safety of having their base not be just destroyed all the time. So that's Hager Base in South. Alex is talking about when you leave there and go to the deep desert, the PvP zone, you build your bases out there. We wipe that space every week. So we know that people are going to build temp bases, hopefully logistics bases, right? Which big guilds are going to want to refine their spice out there. They're not going to want to transport it long distances. They want to build a big base, quickly refine, and then travel with it after they've gotten that and get it back to their safer spaces or put it on the exchange, as Alex mentioned. So yeah, if you're a PvE player and you don't want anything to get destroyed and you want to be careful about base rating, all those kind of things, you just build a base in Hager Base in South, and it's going to be fine as long as you follow you need to have fuel for your shields.
For the fuel,
but if you go
like,
to the
how much time does that have? Is that like a long period of time? Is it short if it's fully charged?
I think it's 20 days with the base generator.
And that's real life days, right?
3 weeks, yeah.
That's a lot. Yeah.
And I think it takes a while to decay after that as well, right? So if you fully fuel it and then you stop fueling it, your shields go down eventually, and then your base slowly gets decayed by sandstorms. So we try to be quite generous. We understand that people have lives and go on holidays and things like that. Also, there is like at the banker in the social hubs, because we have these social hubs like cities, and you go to those. There's also an item storage there, and we have this thing in the game where you can basically take a copy of your base, a blueprint of your base, save it in this tool. It's called a Solido Replicator. And you bring the Solido Replicator, you can put it in a bank slot. And so even if you leave the game for like 6 months or a year and everything gets destroyed, you can have stored your best items at the bank, go back there, pick up fairly quickly from where you left off. You'll just have to re-provide the materials to rebuild that base.
Yeah, so having the blueprint like that is really nice because you don't have to you'd be like, where did I put everything? It's already stored. You already know where it goes. That's cool.
Yep.
So yeah, no, I think that's really, really awesome, actually, having that. And I think in line with the Permanence of the World, what happens when you die, and under what conditions do you actually drop your loot? Because I know when the worm eats you, you drop everything. But what happens in what if you die in a Coriolis storm? What if you die out in the deep desert? What if you die to another player? What if you die where do you drop things and where do you not drop things?
Go on, Alex, you got this.
Okay, no worries. Let me remember. Coriolis Storm is specific for the deep desert. The Coriolis Storm is the reset mechanic. If you happen to be there when the Coriolis sweeps, the storm sweeps everything. It's just gone. It is the two mechanics of the game that deletes items, the worm and the Coriolis. Normal sandstorms just damage things. You can pick things up again. Joel said beforehand, in PvP areas, while you do drop your bag, you will only technically drop inside of it, if I remember off the top of my head, 20% or 25% of minerals, all spice, and all currency, which is what your attackers can potentially take off you. And again, if the rules of the deep desert change based on the decree of open warfare, then it's open warfare, right? In the PvE areas of the game, you will only drop. Am I misremembering? I might be misremembering exactly what the rules are, but you will drop your resources. I don't exactly remember now about currency or spice. So you do have to go back and pick them up. You could choose to lose them, but your items simply lose durability. You just lose your, at that moment, acquired world progression from mining, from gathering, from what have you.
And when your items lose durability, can you repair that infinitely? How does that work? Is it difficult to repair?
Durability mechanics, they allow you to repair an item X amount of times before that item is removed from the economy. Said bluntly, max durability goes down every time you repair it to a point eventually we can no longer repair it. And then the thing is just gone, which is an elegant way of cycling out, even if it's relatively, not subtle, what's the word I'm looking for? Lenient. Even if it's relatively lenient, we cycle items out of the economy because you play, you lose, we want to recycle this progress so that you are encouraged to engage with Ecolab X, Y, or Z yet again.
Nice. So something along the lines of that, people have been asking about this. Are there Lasguns in the game?
We have Lasguns, as you saw the stream before, and we even experimented with the authentic mechanics. However, during experimentation, as people might have guessed, authentic mechanic, when presented in a video game, is actually not fun.
Yeah.
So
The
we
Holtzman
have
nuke.
designed, right? Like, thankfully, we have thankfully, Smoke. We have a great way of narratively going around the challenge of actually having to follow verbatim the book definitions. We tried. It's funny. It's funny for 4 times. Afterwards, it's a bit oppressive, right? It doesn't make good gameplay. So we chose to handle it in an elegant manner as we could. Thanks, Joel.
And how was that handled? Because they want to know.
So sorry, yeah, go on, do it.
I'll take it because I'm the law whore, as we say. The in the story of, because we have this old history universe of Dune, right?
Yeah.
So in our story, there's a city that the Harkonnens occupied. It's called Carthage. That's where they lived, and that was their main base and their main capital on Arrakis for a long time. And then in our story, there was an accident, and there's a lot of story about this in the game. But basically, Carthage was destroyed when a hot lasgun contacted a shield, and the entire city was nuked, and lots of people died. It was a big blow to the Harkonnen, and because of that, it impacted spice mining in a big way because they lost a bunch of their harvesters and they lost a bunch of their spice capacity. So then CHOAM care about spice more than anything. CHOAM is kind of, I'm not going to try and remember the acronym, but it's Combined Hana Ober Mercantile. They then decreed that they would never import to Arrakis lasguns that didn't have a safety mechanism. So now all the lasguns in the game, and this is how we preserve the law by saying, yes, lasguns will cause a nuke, but in our game, all of the lasguns have this safety switch, which, when you point at a shield, they basically just won't allow you to fire, right? Which is how we get around it, right? So that's the way we solve it. It's not amazing, and it means that people in fights, if they have a shield, they could, if you start lining them up with a lasgun, they pop their shield immediately because they don't want to lose it. But lasguns are excellent offense against vehicles, I should mention. So we do see plenty of uses for them in the game. But yeah, it's kind of fun to have to think around these kind of, you want to keep the lore and preserve it as much as possible. You also have to make a video game. So it's kind of, it is actually kind of quite enjoyable to come up with these ways to make it work.
Honestly, that's more of a fun answer than just we got rid of them. Like there's you write it in the lore in some way, and because it's alternate world or alternate history, you can actually do some really cool stuff with that. I like that. I think it's an elegant solution. I think it's fun. And it adds something that wasn't there before, which is more interesting. Yeah, much more interesting. You just joined. You assume shields attract worms, right? Oh yeah. You don't want to wear that out of the dunes, man. Like I think that's one of the interesting things about that is having things that attract the worm can be part of both an offensive type of action and a defensive. If somebody's chasing you and they're behind you, you don't have to run faster than them. You just have to, you don't have to run faster than the worm. You have to run faster than that guy that's behind you, that's near the worm, right? And like, if you do something to attract the worm and that guy's chasing you, maybe it's coming from the direction he is. Lunch, right? So there's all kinds of stuff like that. If it makes it more interesting. Do I want to attract the worm right now? Do I not want to attract the worm right now? Is it advantageous for me? Is it not? Yeah, don't be the slowest. Exactly.
It was 100% like a tactic that I used. We were doing a PvP test. Oh, this is a while ago. This might be even 2 years ago. That's how old I am on this one. But a couple of years ago, we were doing a spice like simulation. So 2 guilds fighting over a spice field. The spice field was like in the center of these 2 guild bases, and the team that won was the team that got the most spice back home. And we were just doing like this to test out our networking code and with everybody. And I remember our team was hopelessly lost. And I was like alone on the sand with a static compactor trying to pick up the spice. And there was just, I watched our harvesting, our spice crawler get destroyed. I watched our thopters going down, and I just was like, they're all coming for me. So I attached myself to the side of one of their spice crawlers or sand crawlers and just activated my shield. And like a few seconds later, the worm just destroyed about half of the battlefield. And that was kind of fun. It was a great moment.
That's freaking rad. Okay, lore question. Tell me about the radio stations. what is the radio? Because I saw the thing in the video. Like, what's going on with this? Do we have multiple radio stations? Can I listen to it as I'm going across the dune? Like, does it attract the worm? You know.
It's like a personal radio station, a bit like you get in the Fallout 3 kind of games. It's the way we did it was we wanted to like there's this thing in the universe it's mentioned in the first book called the community net, and it seems like I kind of described it as like the analog internet. It's kind of weird. Like they can send data, they can send pictures, and they're using waves, right? But we kind of went with this like, well, it's the propaganda arm of the Atreides and the propaganda arm of the Harkonnen, and then there's this third radio station called the Spice Miner Radio. And what we did, the writing team was writing like radio shows, like kind of dramatic plays that we just recorded with actors, and we put them in. And then we wanted good music to go between these, and we were also reaching out to like Stefan Peak, who was the composer on the 1992 not the RTS, but the game by Cryo, and that which is the adventure game. And then there was also the RTS game, and we have a relationship with Frank, who was the composer on that. We've known him before because we worked with Petroglyph, who were the old Westwood guys, on a game called Conan Unconquered in the past. So we knew them, so we reached out and we talked to them, and we eventually, after there's quite a bit of legal hurdles to go through, but we eventually got the soundtracks for both those games. We put them on the in-game radio. So yeah, when you're running around in the world, because we know it's a big vast desert, and there is a lot of traversal in the game. And we tried to make it interesting by giving you vehicles and giving you things to make traversal fun. But there's times that it's unavoidable, especially let's say in the deep desert where it's a gigantic map. You're traveling like the equivalent of like 27 kilometers across that map at times, right? Yeah. So we needed to like give people, so you in the game, you just jump on, you can click onto any of the stations, and you'll hear music from the old Dune games. You'll hear like shows that are propaganda shows. I really like, there's one called The Swordsman, and it's kind of this, it's on the Atreides station. It's kind of like this story about this mysterious swordsman who rolls into town and saves the local peasants. But like, he's kind of an ass because he believes in the order of the Imperium, right? So he's very much like, oh, your local lord is a slave who's become a lord, but that's not possible under the Imperium. So he just goes and kills the lord because, slaves should know their place.
Yeah, right? That's what it was, yeah. I mean, that's Dune, man. That's the Dune universe. Yeah, it's brutal as hell.
Exactly, right? So it's really cool. So it was a lot of fun to do this stuff, and we want to do more of it. And I think you get a lot of the content. Like there's a show, I think we actually have the first episode up on YouTube called 5 Days at Carthag. That kind of, that nuke event I was talking about, that radio show is 5 episodes, each one covering a single day leading up to that event and kind of giving you all the backstory of how that happened. So it's a really good way for us to inject lore in the game in a non like, oh, you have to read a wall of text all the time kind of way, and people can just listen to it and enjoy it while they're playing. And that's kind of what it's there for.
That's cool. As a streamer, am I going to have any problems displaying that music or like playing that music on there? Are we going to run into like weird IP issues with that kind of stuff? That's something I'm always wondering about, because most games will have like a streamer mode for audio.
Yeah, so we'll have a streamer mode for launch. So
that's awesome.
It'll mute automatically the copyrighted tracks on those stations. So you'll still be able to listen to all the radio shows, but yeah, you'll get muted you get to mute those audios.
I'll listen to them off stream. There's nothing you can do. Okay, so now into like the kind of like technical side of stuff. We talked a lot about like server things. We saw all the things that you guys were announcing for server stuff. I'm interested in like, do we have cross-region play? Can I play with a friend who's from Australia when they're on the Australian servers? Can we play together if we go into the deep desert together or anything like that, even if they're in a different Haga basin? So cross-region, is that a thing at all?
No, you'll have to join a world that's in Australia.
Okay.
To go to the deep desert in an Australian world, because I think like just the ping will be brutal.
Yeah, the ping would be brutal. That's why I wanted to know, because like some games try to do it, but the ping is so rough for people in Australia, man. Like we've got a lot of Australian audience,
I'm Australian, right? So I know exactly what it was like growing up. I used to try and play freaking UO from on a 56K modem from East Coast Australia to LA. So yeah, I lived the worst of it, but it's but yeah, no, it's that's why we have that's actually one of the things I always campaign for, us to have servers in Australia as well.
Yeah,
because I just I know the pain, but
no, it's good though.
Yeah, so and the game is quite, it's quite action driven, right? It actually relies on people having fairly decent ping to to have the combat feel responsive and have the melee and parries and things like that actually work. It's very difficult to do parry well in multiplayer. We've even like I love Dark Souls, but even PvP in Dark Souls where someone's hosting you, it's just parry is a very difficult tactic to get right when you're in multiplayer. So we spent a lot of time trying to nail that and making sure the ping works.
Let me
Makes
build on
sense.
this actually, because this is an interesting subject. So, a lot of the mechanics that are under the hood for the PvE experience are geared to give a good and as tight and as responsive a PvP experience as we possibly can. We do a lot of things to allow players that fight against PvE content to actually feel like they can perfect parry in action. So there's a lot of engineering that has gone into the game to allow that to happen. I'm not going to say specific keywords, but players that are fighting PvE content will have a good experience when they try to parry something, even if you're running at 100 ms. I don't know if we're going to have a hard ping limit like we did on the Conan Exiles, which was at like 150, 175 before you were disallowed from connecting to a specific server. But that's beyond. But the PvE experience is designed to be as player friendly as possible. Now, that's the PvE experience, and that's one style of play for one set of people. The PvP experience cannot be that.
Yeah.
It cannot be lenient to person X versus person Y. So this is why what Joel said about being, if you want to truly engage in PvP, specifically melee or even ability play to that matter, you really ought to try to find a I forget the terminology we use, like a battle group of all of the one world that you go to and you play on that has a good MS for you, so your higher basing experience is tight, especially if you want to do PvP experience before you go to the deep desert or whatever other content we release afterwards. So if you have a bad ping against PvE content, we'll try very, very hard to guarantee that you have a as tight experience with all the mechanics as we possibly can. For PvP, just as PvP is an opt-in mechanic, the players are required to opt into better servers or to go to places where they have less latency to the data center.
That's good. No, that's actually really good because that's always really a big concern is like, if I have bad ping, can I even play this game? Right? But if the PvE experience is really lenient on that, you can at least have a good experience on that side, even if you're not interested in that. And you guys were talking about earlier that Haga Basin getting up to the PvP zone is like 70 hours if you're just going. So like that's a shitload of content before that even becomes a problem. Okay,
Yeah,
next one
that's
is
just an average of the. I was just saying that's just an average of the beta survey of the beta servers as well, right? That's just the data we're tracking, so that's an average kind of play
That's
time. It's
wild.
but we have the veterans and they've people we've had
They've
people in this
optimized.
closed
Yeah.
beta. Yeah, they are really good at getting there in like like Alex said, 10 hours, very fast. They can get there. They know what they're doing.
Yeah. So what about a console version? Someone in chat said that you can already pre-order it on PlayStation, so that's a thing. But that's what they were saying. They're like, you can play. I haven't seen it yet, but I don't know. So what about console versions? Have you guys announced console versions? You can be launching on console.
Yep, we've announced that we're doing console versions, and we will be doing console versions for the game, but it'll be post the PC launch. It's actually one of the things we wanted to focus our engineering team on, making sure the PC launch was as tight as it could be, and then we can put more effort into consoles after that. We do have, like, for people who play with controller on PC, we do have full controller support. The game's eminently playable on controller. There's no problem with that. But yeah, we wanted to, it's I don't know, like it's so different optimizing for a console and then optimizing for the vast array of hardware that you have to work with on a PC. And so we spent a lot of our time just trying to nail down optimization for PC, and then we will focus on consoles post-launch. So it will come. It won't be at launch simultaneously with the PC, though.
So console versions are a yes. What about cross-platform play? Can I play with my friend who's on console from my PC?
It's still under discussion. We'll look at it as we build the console versions. It's going to depend on the platform holders a bit, right? Like we've made a couple of MMO, or more than one, but we made multiple MMOs. I think you played Secret World. I remember we talked about it.
Yeah.
And like the weird thing was that they didn't really get MMOs on the consoles for a long time, right? It changed not that long ago. So yeah, we'll have to see how it is with this, how they how it goes with sort of discussing it. I think it's fine, and we want to do it. Obviously, it's the best thing for the player base and for players.
Yep.
But it'll depend.
Yeah. Jesus joined your Discord. It's massive. Yeah, we have about 230,000 people in there, but I've set it up so that it's built through a system of roles. So if you get overwhelmed by channels, don't select the roles. It'll only show you channels for sections that you have opted into. So it's really easy to just kind of configure into the way that you want it to be and join the micro communities you want to be a part of based on the games or the interests that you have, stuff for programming, stuff for art, all kinds of things. Yeah. Yeah, so I think that's actually really cool that way. I think the one thing that I'm always worried about, especially in a game that has shooting mechanics, is players that will emulate that they're on a controller using something like a Zim, Gimax used to be called that, and then they're using a mouse so they get the advantage of automatic aim from the controller, but the precision of a mouse. Is there anything that you guys have in place to thwart that kind of stuff? Any types of things that you've thought about for these things? Because that is always an advantage that I've seen.
So
Alex is going to talk
I
about
will-
momentum.
Hey, I'm not sure where we're going. I was going to talk about a person, not momentum
Go
per
ahead.
se.
You can talk about it.
So, kind of sideways answering, kind of not. We have a couple of devs here that are engineers that are very, very. I don't know if they still could do competitive CS:GO, but they're very serious about their shooting mechanics. They're very passionate, and we are very, very much interested in solving this problem. People will not be allowed to have advantages in PvP that they should not have because they're trying to abuse control system X and force it to interact with control system Y. Personally, I think we should try to make the PvP experience as fair as humanly possible. This is why before when I said that the onus is on the player to choose a ping correct location for them to play from, because there is no great way other than that to really solve that problem. And this is the same perspective as well. We'll make sure that the experience is as nice as we can get it to be, but if players want to use a keyboard and mouse on a device that is meant to be used with a controller, then that is understood and reacted to. Exactly how, I don't know. We'll figure it out when we get there.
Yep.
Yeah,
and just
no,
in
that's
terms of
good.
standard,
I think it's good because that's a tough one, man. Like I've asked that of a number of different shooters, and it's always a very difficult thing. It is always one of those like sometimes devs go, "Wait, that's a thing," and you're like, "Oh no!" And sometimes, like you guys have, you've thought about it, and it's tough, dude. Like that's a tough problem to solve, and it's what players may not understand is that is absolutely a cat and mouse game. You guys will find a way to defeat it. They'll find a way around it, and you're constantly going to go back and forth trying to beat this type of thing. And the industry's been trying to beat it for years. You know, that's just kind of how it goes. And you'll find it better and better. You raise the bar is the best thing. So it's good. It's
yeah,
really
100%.
good.
It's the standard race against cheaters and things like that. Like it's you know we have anti-cheat in place as well in the game, and yeah, we have a lot of like one of the things that's nice, like where Funcom as a company is owned by Tencent, and Tencent have a extremely good cheat detection division, I would say. And so they play the game and just send us these huge reports of like, here is how your game is exploitable to cheats, even with your anti-cheat. And then we make a lot of efforts to program out those things. Now, of course, it's like it's still corporations testing with it's not real players, and real players tend to
They'll find
up
ways.
the bar. And as you say, it's a rat race, right? It always has been. I remember one of the best coders I ever hired was a guy who was, before we hired him, he was hacking Warden in WoW. So
Yeah. I was on the team of the guys finding those guys are better. That's my job.
So
oh, that's funny.
So yeah, but I mean, he was a great coder. He ended up I think working for Microsoft in the end in their any hacking division. But yeah, it's just fun.
You should ask him if he liked Tripwire sometime.
Yeah.
Just be like, how did you like Tripwire, bud? It's very funny. Yeah, Tripwire is. It always made me laugh. The cat and mouse stuff with Warden all the time is you had cheat developers that would put things in like Tripwire, and then you had Blizzard would put things in that would try and catch that. And the cheat creators actually got so sophisticated that they would detect when you were trying to do a decompilation tool or detect when you were trying to hook memory or anything like that. And it would go, oh, and just escape. And it was just like, that's wild, dude. Like, because What a lot of people don't realize is that cheat developer can create something that is allowed to read all of the memory of your computer, so it can check for when the program is trying to defend itself and get out of there, which is really interesting. There's all kinds of. It's been a rat race and a cat and mouse game for ages, and it's really interesting to watch it evolve over time. And now we're at this point where it's like custom hardware and extra modules. It's ridiculous, dude. It's gotten insane.
I like I see some of the cheats for Conan Exiles, our last game, some of the hacks and stuff, and I keep an eye on that stuff, and it's just I mean it's because that game has private servers that people can run themselves, and it's kind of like, well, it's people are a little defenseless, but also the server code is kind of out there and people can get access to it, and so it's like that's a hard race to win.
Yeah, you can't win that. And once you put it out there, it's out there. Yeah.
Right. But with Dune, we're taking extra special care. But we'll see. I mean, it's going to be always that rat race. It's always going to be that challenge. But yeah, we'll do our best, right?
I think the biggest thing to remember is, like, the player base. If you see something like that, report it. The developers want to defeat that. Sometimes they either just can't, or they're trying to come up with a solution for it that's elegant enough where it doesn't accidentally ban you at the same time. That's hard to do. It's not an easy thing to do, especially if you've got people like that are just mutants at the game. You don't want to ban a guy just because he's good, and that happens all the time too. It's rough. It's a hard needle to thread a lot of the times to not hit normal average players. But yeah, okay. So now the ugliest of questions. This is the scariest question that every player wants to know. What about the monetization? How are you selling the game?
Oh, I'm very proud of this one. This is fun. This is this is
confidence.
This is one that makes me glow up. It's a $50 purchase for the game, and then it's going to be DLCs. We have a season pass, so there'll be DLCs approximately every 3 months, and then at some point in the future, we'll probably add an expansion, and then you pay for that. There's no in-game store, there's no battle pass, there's no ongoing monetization in the game, there's no microtransactions at all. That's it. That's what we're trying to do. We believe that the gaming industry's pendulum has swung one way, and maybe it's swinging back.
No battle pass, no in-game store, no microtransactions. Just buy the game and then buy DLCs and expansion?
Yep. That's it. That's where we're at.
That's massive, dude. That is... All right. Hell yeah. Yeah, no, that's... I think that's the thing that people were really, really afraid of. Like, straight up. Because the moment you talk about a game that's like survival-based, like, oh, it's going to be pay to win. It's going to be... You buy experience. You buy, like teleports or whatever it's going to be. That's freaking rad. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, no,
yeah, they're cheering.
I mean, it's look, I've been on all sides of this, right? It's like it's hard. I'll say this as a developer who's worked on game like Secret World is a perfect example of this, right?
Yeah.
I love that game. I loved it. I put every fiber of my being into that project, and I loved it, and I really wanted to succeed. And it had less players than it needed. And in order to keep the team together, we started out with subscription, I believe, when we launched it. We dropped the subscription pretty quickly because we saw we needed more players, right? And then there was like a DLC plan where we were putting out these issues, and like we were designing these issues and releasing issues every so often.
There was like comic books, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it was awesome.
I was there from launch to the end, man.
Oh, okay, cool. So like, and I was game director on it during that period, and it was like, and I was like, and it was just sad to sort of like revenue was dwindling. We weren't getting the people in as much as we were hoping. I thought the game had infinite potential, but it just, and then there was a point where we like, we have to add these kind of items to the item store, right? And the saddest moment I think of my career, like sad in a way, was we added a loot box to the item store in that game, and it sold more in a day than the game had made in a year.
Yep, I am not surprised.
And it was that like point where I was like, I fought so hard to never do that stuff, and then it happened, and it was like it was heartbreaking as a like a game director, as a designer. It's heartbreaking that kind of stuff makes money and makes a lot of money.
It makes the most money. It's something I've talked about with the community before. Is the reason that those microtransactions exist, the reason that happens, is because it makes so much money. It is poison, but it is the most attractive poison, and that's the problem. And making games is expensive, man. Like it is.
Yeah, you're in that situation where it's like, well, I want to keep this team of like awesome developers together.
Yep.
You know, like it's like it's voluntary. People, but anyway, look. The good news is, with Dune, we're in that like we're gonna launch. The game's coming out. We have like pretty solid plan. The monetization is going to be like what we as gamers honestly believe is the right path, and we think is like hopefully people will also like buy into the game because they like this model and they want to support this model. And for me, this is like this is the way to do it, and we'll see how it goes. But this is where we're at, and I think it's also a consequence of just being in those positions as a company and being like, what's the right thing to do for gamers? And I love that I got to say, like the business people here, like the CEO and people, they support this, right? It's not like it's not been a continual fight all the time. We toyed with other ideas, of course we did. We're a company that
business,
look at this, right? You think about these things, but in the end, we did what I think is the right thing for the game, and I think it is, I think it deserves to have that kind of monetization. I think it should be good.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. And the thing is, for me as a player and a consumer, I want to support that because I know that it's easier to make money the other way. And I know that you're at a disadvantage monetarily by not buying into those models, but you're going to make a better game because of it for all of us. And I think that's the thing that I care about the most, as somebody who throws his money in and buys the game. It's harder and harder to find games that you can throw that kind of support behind, legitimately so. So I'm glad to hear that. Really glad to hear that. I was worried because I didn't know. I was like, I don't know what your monetization is going to be. So like, no, that's great, man. I'm super into that.
No, that's our monetization. That's it. That's what we're doing. Paid launch, paid DLCs. That's it.
That's great. That's great. And those DLCs, as they add content to it, I did see on the map, I saw something. I saw when you guys put the map up, there were 3 question marks up on that map that just kept appearing. What can we expect in a DLC? Even if you can be vague about it. Is there anything like new areas, new items? Is it going to outmode all the other stuff that we've done? Will it make it irrelevant?
No, I think so. The philosophy we're following internally right now is that like the expansions can increase the power of the game. You can think about World of Warcraft. It's
like a full expansion will be, but not a DLC.
Yeah, like a full expansion can lift the power level of the game, and people will buy the expansion hopefully, and in that expansion they can get to a higher level. They can get access to more stuff, right? In the DLCs, the idea is to either have parallel progression. So if we and this is theoretical, but let's say we added a new map as a DLC, like you can go and explore this new map, right? And it's a DLC. The progression in that area will match the progression that we already have in the game, so people don't feel pay to win. Right?
So it makes it wider, not taller.
Yes,
for DLC. That's great.
The game. Exactly. So it will add, gameplay, right? So you want to play another, like definitely we'll have DLCs. Like so, the way we're talking about it, we'll have DLCs that have content in them, quest lines, things you can do in those DLCs, right? And through playing those DLCs, I earned, different skins or whatever, right? Like cosmetic rewards and things like that. You might also be able to get access to things of the same tier that you can get in the other map, but we won't give you power there. That's the plan, right? Avoid selling power to anybody. So that would be the DLCs, and then the expansion would come along, and then that might be purchasable, and that would be power.
That makes sense.
That would raise the cap. Yep.
And I'm glad that is the only way to purchase power is to buy the video game.
yeah, and play it.
You cannot
right?
be powerful unless you buy the game and play it. Fantastic.
Yep.
That's the way it should be, man. As it should be, exactly.
100%.
Oh yeah, no. Somebody was asking what you get with the season pass. Here, I've linked it in chat for you guys. There you go.
Sorry, let me add on to Joe. I saw something scrolling through chat here for a second. I'm not going to repeat the question. So when we say add power, we don't mean that we will invalidate all the content. All content is ideally as usable as possible. For example, if there is a Swords Master, if we ever release another archetype, all the archetypes are theoretically usable by every player. So one archetype will not be just better, have more numbers than archetype from yesteryear. Everything will live in a environment where everything ought to have a role and reason to exist. Right? We won't just invalidate things because that's just not fun, right? It invalidates not only people's time and investment, like the work that has gone in, the energy that has gone in. That's the objective, right? When there is a thing added, it will be made to fit the existing gameplay models to find its niche. We might have to. It's a live service game. We might have to go back and fix some stuff from previous releases that is not quite the standard, or that we need to make gameplay space for. For example, this new thing does X and Y, but some of that X and Y already exists in a lesser form over here. So we need to massage the space, the gameplay space, the design space, to allow for both things to exist, yet be thematically different from each other and actually have meaning and reason for players to use and want to engage with.
That's good. No, I like that. I like that a lot, actually. I'm also wondering, like, if... so one of the things that I saw inside of the video was you guys had a character that was like level 1,000 something. Is that actually an attainable number? Is that a cheated in number for that dev account? Like, does that imbalance the game in some way? How does the leveling system there work and or matter for progression? Can I just dunk a guy that's like level 5, right?
So, like we said at the top of the stream, we are expecting is a big word. We're trying to put in 33% of character power into you just playing the game and unlocking things and having stats go up. Then the other 33% is in your equipment, and then the other 33% theoretically is in you just as a player. That's more
Being
or less
good.
roughly how we've just be good, or get better, or get more stats, or get more friends. Usually more friends is the easiest way to get through a problem. There are the character that I was driving, for example, was devved in, but the way our perspective sits right now is that in theory you ought to be able to unlock everything eventually. You can respec. It's just that when you unlock things, you just choose that, hey, listen, I prefer being a swordsmaster. I'm gonna unlock swordsmaster all the way up to tier 3 skills. That might not give you enough points to unlock Bene Gesserit all the way up to tier 3, but you can probably get them up to tier 1, which is I have the functionality, but it's missing the 5 or 10% difference that makes a Bene Gesserit expert max that character different to yours, because that's their choice. That's the current plan. It might get revisited as content gets added to the game. It's a gas game. We need to make gameplay space for everything to matter. We need to play with this idea a little bit more through the expansions.
Does character level at some point just become kind of a cosmetic, like, aha, I'm level 2,000 sort of thing? They do that kind of a thing in Monster Hunter Wilds, for instance, where you just have HR level, which is cosmetic.
I was just going to jump in and say, sorry, just going to jump in and say that we've capped the level to 200.
Oh, okay.
To be aware of that. So I guess whoever spawned Alex a character had it set to a bit
high.
Super hard.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, because I was wondering, I was like, dude, I kind of like that because I like number go up, even if I'm not getting stats from it. Like the idea of like I'm level 10,000, like that's kind of it's like a badge of honor of how much you've no life to video game, right? Like, so I do enjoy that.
It's a bit of a throwback to our old AO video game, which had like 220 levels, I think.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, we actually were letting it be free, but then we capped it recently because we want to make a few changes systems-wise to ensure that people actually have to experiment and not just like, go through the levels and continue just leveling up all the skills all the way. They actually have to stop, respec, and think about things. But there is a point where, for example, you stop getting intel points as you level up, which is your research tree stuff. And then the intel points are then found in the world. And we talked about the Deep Desert, right? The Deep Desert has locations where you can pick up intel points. The Deep Desert wipes every week. You don't know where those locations are going to be. So there's a re-engagement mechanic there because you want intel points to continue filling out your tech tree. So off you go into the Deep Desert, figure out where the intel points are, harvest them. That's part of the progression. Your levels stop giving you intel, but at some point you need to go and play the game to get intel as well. So we kind of shift people in that mindset a little bit.
Let's say that a map comes back around in the Deep Desert. Can I get intel from it again? Or once I've seen that map, I've done that map?
No, I think it resets that you can get intel. I believe you can keep farming intel in the Deep Desert from the various locations.
I like that. Yeah, that's quite fun.
Yep.
Yeah, I dig that a lot. Yep. Somebody was bringing up spice addiction. How does the spice addiction mechanic work? Because once you consume spice and you go into the prescient state, and then you leave it, and then there's an addiction phase of some kind. Does that get worse over time? What does it do to you?
So in the play session, yeah, absolutely, brother. In the play session, that was what we're doing with both the solo experience, the group experience, and then the double backstab experience afterwards. The addiction mechanic of spice is a very strong narrative hook and driver in the world of Arrakis Dune. Once you go to Arrakis and you achieve Eyes of the Bad, if I'm not mistaken, Joel, you can never leave because nowhere else has the same level of saturation of spice anywhere else in the galaxy. The mechanic we simulated in that there is a consumable that you convert spice into a consumable that you can use to boost your power momentarily in waves. If you are too often using it, then the duration of that consumable or the duration of that power state is shorter. Therefore, you must burn more spice to maintain the same levels. There is always going to be a down cycle where you saw myself or the other players lose for a couple of moments their prescient state. They had to ingest spice to go again and re-unlock all of the strength, all the cooldown reduction, and everything else. So there is a mechanic there. I think it is a quite elegant hook, not only to the narrative, but also to the economy and the way of getting players to invest in the most important resource in the known galaxy, which is spice.
Yeah, and the more spice you take, the more you need to reach that level. Right? So over time, so if let's say we're going to do a hard dungeon and we just jack up our spice, but it only lasts 5 minutes or whatever, then it runs out, then we want to jack up our spice again. We're actually driving up how much spice we need each time to achieve that state, right? And then there's a long cooldown after that of how long it takes for you to revert to the baseline level of spice that you need to get into that state. So the addiction factor is handled there, where the more you take, the more you drive up your addiction, and the longer it takes for you to go back to baseline. So yeah, that's kind of how the and then of course while you're let's say coming down off a spice high, you might see some very interesting things in the world that you haven't seen before. There's some definite let's say Jodorowsky influences in the game.
I'm digging this, dude. I'm super. I can't wait to see that. I'm waiting for the first guy, like in a group with me, to start shooting the spice hallucinations and thinking that we're all surrounded or something ridiculous, dude. Like, oh, I'm so into it, dude. Yeah. Oh man. Okay, so I think another one that's going to be a really big topic for a lot of people, and it is a harder one, is how do you guys feel about banning players that you've caught cheating in the games? Are you more akin of being very harsh on this? Are you more akin of being like kind of more lenient, giving people extra chances? Every company handles this differently, and there's no real wrong answer here. It's just more of a what can players expect in terms of enforcement?
Actually, will say that I haven't had the strong discussion with our live ops team about this yet. We have noticed some people doing stuff in the game during beta that we know they shouldn't be doing, and we've actually let them do it because we're trying to track down these things. So we haven't taken a super strong stance in the beta because we're actually trying to pin down a lot of this stuff, and capturing people in action doing this stuff is very helpful. But for launch, I actually haven't had the discussion. It'll be something that we talk about. So I don't know. My instinct tends to be pretty harsh. My instinct tends to be like shut it down, right? But because I think I don't know, it's hard. But that's just my instinct, and I can't speak to the actual policy on this because there's a whole like we have a live
thing.
Operations team.
Yeah,
but we also have a live operations team, right? And they also set a lot of how our policies work. And I haven't spoken to them directly about this yet. It will definitely happen before launch, but we haven't. So I can't answer it in the sense of like I just don't know yet. Right?
So someone said define cheating, and it is a harder question. There's always going to be tiers to this of like what is acceptable behavior and what's not. Like, let's say that if you buy an item from a vendor and you sell it back to the vendor, it actually gives you more money than you bought the item for, thus stooping 1 gold, right? Let's say there's a player that does this once. You're probably not going to ban that guy. Some guy does it 5 times. Probably not going to ban him. Then you got a guy who built an auto clicker to do it tens of thousands of times per minute. That dude's going to get banned, right? Like that's when you have to determine what it is that happened. Is the person actually exploiting the behavior for some kind of in-game advantage? Did they have to realize at some point that they were doing something that was wrong? There's all kinds of checks that you have to make to determine, is this guy bannable? And then after you do that, he's still going to go on the forums and cry and say he did nothing wrong and how dare you? And it was his dog that did it, not him. No matter what it is. No matter what it is, dude. It's going to happen every time. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my general feeling about a lot of this stuff is like, how much does it impact other people's
That's the big one.
experience as well?
Yeah.
Like to me that's the like, those are the big bands, right? Those are the ones where like you're messing with other people's ability to enjoy our game. Like, you shouldn't be here.
Yep.
Right? Like,
And
it's
that's most of it in multiplayer games too, because they do it because
Yeah,
they
it
want to
is.
get an
It is.
advantage over the other players, you know, and then they rationalize it somehow. And it's like, no.
Yeah, I can't believe people pay literally hundreds of dollars a month to get access to kernel level cheats in games. It's crazy to me that people care that much about winning, but like, I guess they do.
Yep.
Especially like, it's not like we're an esport, right? I can kind of understand it if you're on the line for a $10,000 prize. I just don't get it in a game where it's a social. I mean, it's the whole social thing, of course it is, but you know, it's bizarre to me. I see people, you know, they pay for kernel root hacks and they're paying, it's $1,000 a month for the hack. The guy making the hack is loving it, right? Because he's making so much money off people, and I don't understand their reasoning.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, it's wild, man. I've seen all kinds of stuff with that, and I think that's the thing is there's always a lack of communication a lot of the times from major companies. I think this is one of the biggest weaknesses in the industry right now. If you ban people, you should tell people, tell the players, put a report out. Yep. I think Final Fantasy XIV does this very, very well. Is they'll put out a report and they're like, we banned this many people, they did this, great, and they get that like every 2 weeks or something like that. I think that kind of transparency is really what's lacking, and I think it's led a lot of people to think that bans don't happen. As an example of this, they just think that it's
Valve
not
used
real.
to do it too, right?
Yeah,
I don't know if they still have it. Valve used to do it. Yeah,
I'm not sure if they do anymore, but no, I think a lot of the times companies are doing what they can to ban these people. You just don't get to know about it as players, and I think more companies that will report this stuff to the players is really where it is. We got ads.
100%.
We got ads for 2 minutes. They still do it in Dota. That's good. I think it's a good thing. First Descendant doing it too. Nice. No, it's good. I think that should be more of a standard personally. That's my big thing is I think that it turns players from being an enemy of the devs, thinking the devs don't care, into being on their side and reporting these guys because they know it does something. You know.
Yeah, 100%. Alex, have you ever been banned? Did you ever cheat in EVE Online?
Ooh, you played EVE?
No.
Oh, Alex is. Yeah.
Don't start this. Hey, this goes into dark hole of spaceships.
Hey, 15 years, old goon.
I don't think I want to say, bro.
Look at
fine.
back.
Are you gonna come out with the old Test Alliance? Is that what's happening?
No. Before that, from 04.
Oh, old days. See, now I gotta ask you offline. Yeah, no, I left Goon a while back, and then I made a Triglavian alliance. It was quite fun. We ended up building Pochfin, and then I burned it to the ground with everybody else. We all burned it together, and then I left the game. That's my big
one thing that you're allowed to do in EVE Online is to riot. If you don't get to riot, what's the point of EVE Online?
What's the point? Yeah, no, exactly. 100% that. I'm glad, that's good, though. I mean, you have that kind of experience in there. You'll know what kind of goblins people turn into in a game like this, you know?
The conversations me and Joel have had about the darker side of human behavior, and yeah, we've been there. Absolutely.
Dude, trust me.
I'm a sweet summer child compared to Alex. He comes to me and tells me dark shit.
So you never played EVE, but he played EVE all the way into. Okay, yeah, no, you're lucky to have him on the. You're lucky to have him on the team because he'll tell you that, like the guy who cut the power to the other dude's house to gain advantage in EVE, dude, it's wild. There's some stuff that happened in that game that's nuts. So, but that's social sandbox games, you know. People take it too seriously sometimes. So it's good to have that perspective.
One of our social economy director was an EVE dev as well. So he was there on the other side. Has good stories about that.
That's actually really
PVD?
good. Yeah. That's actually really good to know, though. So you said social economy director? That's fantastic.
At Funcom, he's our social economy director. He was a dev on EVE.
That's fantastic, though, because honestly, one of the things that I tell people a lot of times is that the economy system in EVE Online is the poster child for doing it right. It is one of the most balanced economies for a player-run economy I have ever seen in any game. And yeah, that's great. You guys got a lot of heavy hitters on the team, man. That's rad. Secret World and EVE Online stuff and all this experience. Yeah,
no, that's cool. It's cool people. We've spent it's the company's been growing, right? Like
Yeah.
for a while, and we picked up some really good people along the way, really nice people too. I think company culture is important, right? Like it's a really big deal.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think our company culture is pretty good.
I'm here for the
I
salary.
mean, I'm
bro.
I, you know
Stay
I'm
for the banter.
Alex is always telling me to climb down off the ivory tower and come visit him
Those
because
are in-house jokes.
Into
Not
the
for public
pit.
service.
yeah, he's literally like 50 meters walk around the corner, but like
That's funny.
we have this directors room which we're sitting in, and it's tech
The
directors and
assault.
executive
The assault
producers
shall
and
begin. The
everyone's
tower
getting
shall
yelled at
fall
in
and we shall
here.
be mounted.
So funny.
Burn down the tower.
Well,
Yeah,
we're right about the end of time, but chat wanted to know, are there going to be Linux builds?
So the biggest hurdle for us, so there aren't Linux builds. You can run the game on Linux. People in the Discord in the beta have been like making sure that they can get things up and running. We are going to run on Steam Deck. We did have BattleEye as one of our anti-cheat solutions, and we had BattleEye fixed it. They added like a Steam Deck version so that it would work. So the game is running with BattleEye on Linux in various circumstances, but it's as you know, there's all the different distros, and it's kind of crazy at times to sort of read in the. I just pop into the Linux help channel on our Discord and kind of go, okay, like these 500 people with obscure versions have it running, and these 20 people don't, right? But they're all helping each other, and yeah, so it seems to be running on Linux. Quite a few people play on Linux, so yes, I would say it works. But we aren't building specific Linux builds, no.
Yeah, and for everybody in chat, they actually put up their minimum specs for system requirements, and the graphics card is a 1060. So I feel it's probably going to run pretty well on deck. I don't see that really being a problem. That's pretty low min specs. I'm really surprised actually. Red.
Yeah, it runs decently. It's we have this. I'll give one positive shout out. Another thing that's cool about like just that Tencent have this internal global illumination system that they developed for mobile phones, and we're able to put that into our game on the min spec, so that we actually have the same lighting on the min spec that we kind of have on the high spec with Lumen in Unreal 5. Just the advantage of having access to like a global illumination system like that is really cool for us because it makes the buildings and things work really, really well. And it's just it's nice, right? That's kind of an advantage you get.
I kind of want to see that now. Like that's wild, dude. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really
And they
cool.
developed it completely to run on mobile, which means that putting it onto sort of lower end PC hardware works great. And so yeah, we just switched over from Lumen to that when we're running on the lower specs. That's perfect.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, I really want to see like the differences. I want to check it out now. That's freaking rad. I'm into it. Well, that's about all the time we have. But is there anything else you guys want to leave the community with? Anything you want to tell them?
Go on, Alex. Say what you got to say. Words of wisdom, my friend.
Words of wisdom. No, I don't think so, bro. I had fun. I had fun talking. I had fun playing today. It was great. It's great to have everybody tune in, enjoy the show. Let's see where we go next.
I just thanks everyone for listening to us. Thanks for having us. It's always nice to get the chance to talk face to face with real people and real communities.
Thank you guys very much for being on. Honestly, like this, it's cool because this is something that I was already really excited about, and as I meet you guys and learn more about the team and we interact like this, I'm just getting more excited about it. So you guys are doing an awesome job. I'm really excited for this. I can't wait to hang out with the community and die to a worm in the desert because it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Gonna happen.
Yep. So I'll see you guys later.
Cool. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
See you.